All right, good morning and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. It's a pleasure to be back this beautiful Monday morning. I know I've missed you guys. I've missed the last three live broadcasts: Saturday morning, Saturday night, Sunday night. Yeah, but anyways, I was away on travel, so I could not get on here and do those missed broadcasts. But we are back, and we are happy, very very happy to be back. Anyways, welcome back to the Football Tribe channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Allow me have our audios tested and make sure everything does check out before we even go any further. But yeah, I'm glad to be back. Thank you so much to all our new subscribers. Thank you so much to the new community members that have joined in recent times. And I hope you do get to enjoy your stay with us. Looks like our audio checks out just fine. Welcome back from match day 4 of the Premier League. Looks like it was burning hot, depending on what side of the aisle you are rooting for. But things did not go one too well for Manchester United. Things were a bit scrappy for Chelsea, not too decent for Liverpool and things like that. But and yet Tottenham Hotspurs continue to fly high just as much as Arsenal and everything in that regard. So we'll be trying to digest some of the weekend results and what the implications are and who is up next for some of your respective teams. What's the outlook on the Premier League table after 4 games played? Are the teams we predicted will be in the relegation battle the ones already involved in it, or it's totally or entirely different new faces? So yeah, there's all that for us to digest from weekend of from the match day 4. Yes, Robert, I'm back. Hi, LFC. Good to have you back. Always a pleasure seeing you around, my brother. How is your beautiful morning? How is your Monday morning? I hope you're okay. How? Welcome back from that sort of narrow victory against Brentford. Sorry, against Burnley over the weekend for you Liverpool fans. How was it? How did you enjoy the game? Did you have your reservations on it? What were your impressions of the game? We know that Burnley finished with a man less, and you needed a 95th minute penalty for you to win it. But it's still a Monday. Yeah, I know the Monday blues. Leslie Ugochukwu getting himself sent off in the 84th minute, and then nearly or slightly over 10 minutes later, Liverpool winning the penalty that was converted by Mo Salah to secure all 3 points from that's from Burnley. And I mean, it's not unexpected. It wasn't unexpected that Liverpool would win, but it was unexpected that they won in the manner in which they did. Particularly because you ideally you would have thought that there's no easy game in the Premier League, that's for sure. But I, for one, would have thought that just maybe, Liverpool would have had a comfortable win against a team like Brentford. But if we are being honest, I do not think, and I suddenly stand to be corrected, I do not think I've seen Liverpool in a comfortable win this season. Like, I've not seen that. We saw what happened against Newcastle. It was 3-2. Now, a win is a win. Take nothing away from Liverpool because they are the reigning champions and they are scrapping wins away. But that's the point exactly, that they are having to scrap away results. We saw it against Newcastle. We saw it on the opening Friday against Brentford. Sorry, against Bournemouth, which they won by 4 goals to 2. The result in itself possibly did not paint the best picture of what we had observed in that game. We saw it the previous weekend when they entertained Arsenal at Anfield. So, what is it about this Liverpool side? What is it about this Liverpool side that is not clicking in place? That is literally having them being forced to scramble our results, because I mean, they've only won one game by a margin of 2 goals. They've managed to keep 2 clean sheets, which is a positive. They've conceded 6 goals. Is it? No, sorry. They've conceded 4 goals, 2 against Bournemouth and 2 against Newcastle. So when you look at the onlook of results, it's easy to say Liverpool have had a perfect start, and it is what they've had in terms of winning. But when you assess the performances themselves in regards to what they mean, or when you dive deeper into those performances, then you could question some of their performances and results. I know players like Florian Wirtz are yet to click. They are yet to click as early as they would have hoped. We know that Alexander Isak wasn't in the matchday squad, and you hope that when he walks into that team, they're going to be a much, much better team going forward. Possibly put away chances or more clinically than they are doing it at the moment. And that's not to say that Etike is inefficient, because he's banging his goals. But my point is, as reigning champions, as the title favorites for quite a good number of people, I think Liverpool should be giving us more. Now, and this is on the flip side, or the advantage of this all is that even when they're not playing well, they are winning games. And that's the scary part. So the question becomes, how about when they click and everything starts falling in place? How devastating are they going to be? I think they will get teams being swept away in as early as the first half, So, of course, Martin Dubravka did himself all the favors and wonders, in that game to make sure that Burnley stayed in it and things like that. And kudos to him, I must say. But once again, I think for if you want to look on the brighter side, Liverpool fans, you'll have to look to that to say, oh, look here, we are not winning. Sorry, we are winning, even when we are not playing well. And that in itself is going to matter more than anything. And maybe that's what matters at the moment. Just keep winning. And you see what the advantage about keeping on winning is that it gives you the momentum, it gives you the belief, it gives you the conviction that everything else will fall in line. Just imagine you keep working at something, and for those that have done programming before, you know that if things are working, then the user interface is something that you can work on. So Liverpool are a functioning system in terms of winning, but in terms of outlook, in terms of beauty, they are not yet there. So I'm thinking that they will get things correct along the way. So because that victory, that narrow one win against Burnley, leaves them at the summit of the Premier League. And yeah, with 12 points, perfect start, 4-4, only 4 goals conceded. And then again, you look at the way they win that penalty. Like I said, very late on in the game, it's a handball in the area, and Mo Salah puts it away. I think he's missed the last 2 spot kicks, and this couldn't have come under more pressure, but he took it away quite brilliantly, I thought to myself. So beautiful result. Anyways, UEFA Champions League gets underway, on Tuesday and Wednesday. So expect to see Liverpool in action quite very soon. When are they playing? Is it on? I think on Wednesday. That's when Liverpool do come in action, because on Tuesday, I know for a fact that Arsenal is among those in action in as far as the Premier League is concerned. Yes, Liverpool will be at home against Atletico de Madrid. We're talking about an Atletico Madrid side that they themselves have not had, a good start to to their La Liga season. But we'll get to digest that in the course of the week. So quickly, back to Super Sunday. Manchester United, I mean, what an abysmal performance from Manchester United against Manchester City. Guys, if, I don't know, if it hadn't been for luck, possibly Man City were putting 5 or 6 past this Manchester United side. And for all the bad that Manchester United have been in recent times, one thing we've been confident about them on their side is that they know how to play against the big teams and they know how to scrap away a result. In any case, my prediction had been a 2-2 draw. I thought somehow, not in terms of performance, I thought maybe they may not go toe-to-toe with Manchester City, but they will be able to scrap out a result, you know. But yesterday, I mean, they fell further than short, if there's anything like that. They just did not feel like they had come to compete. Manchester City were all over them. A burst from Brown Erling Haaland, who should have gotten a hat-trick in that game, had his third attempt not hit the base of the upright before being carried away. I mean, that's how close it was. Of course, Phil Foden opening the scoring. What kind of defending was that, Manchester United? I mean, for the third goal, what kind of defending is that? Harry Maguire, way up, almost approaching the final third. And you're defending against Broad Erling Haaland. You're defending against Manchester City, who you know very capable of playing that long pass that beats, you know, out, that cuts out, you know, the entirety of your backline. And practically, you left yourselves bare. Altay by India should have done better in some moments. But I mean, I think in a way, that performance from Altay by India is what must have gotten Andre Onana laughing over somewhere there in Trabzonspor in Turkey over the weekend, saying, well, I was being blamed for everything that was happening every time we conceded. Now it's a new goalkeeper, literally some mistakes. Why? And I've made this argument before. For those of you that do follow this channel quite ardently, I made the argument before that it's easy to blame the goalkeeper and ignore the rest of the team. I made this submission about Andre Onana, especially following Manchester United being knocked out of the EFL Cup by Grimsby Town, you know. And my argument was that while Andre Onana has things that he needed to correct on himself, that he needed to do better as a goalkeeper, you could not take away the blame that had to be levied on the entirety of the team in their own performance. And I reiterate the same thing here, because yes, you can go and blame the goalkeeper for being inefficient in certain moments, but the goalkeeper is not even half the entire game, you know, because modern day football is you lose the ball, regardless of where you lose it, you begin with the counter press. The person that is lost it, and collectively as a team. Then, if that counter press fails, that's with the attackers, that's when the midfielders join in before we get to the defense. And by the time we get through 3 phases of play or of defending, until when we get to the goalkeeper, I think that the goalkeeper, in a way, if it is not a clear and obvious error from the goalkeeper, should be the last person that we apportion blame. You know, because the first line of defense was beaten. The second line of defense was beaten. The third line of defense was beaten. That's the defenders. And subsequently, the goalkeeper. Because that's how the modern game is. You lose the ball, you're trying to attack. As soon as you lose that ball, your Seshkos, your Mbumos have to start the counter press before you even bring in the midfielders. So, Manchester United by their very own setup. Of course, there are debuts for Gianluigi Donnarumma on the other side, but Altay by India, Matthias De Ligt, Leniero, Luxo, and remember I told you in the preview of this game that if Manchester United were to get a result, in this game, Matthias De Ligt had to be twice the player he had been when he managed to defend against Victor Gyökeres. He needed to be twice that to beat off Broad Erling Haaland. And we can see that they failed, you know. Luke Shaw, Leniero, you know, those are the players that started for this Manchester United side. And in the defense, and we know that in the second half, Harry Maguire was brought in for Lenio, Musa Mazoro, he came in for Kobe Mino, and Benjamin Sesko came off for Joshua Zaxi, and things like that. But that midfield, Patrick Dogu, Manuel Ugarte, Bruno Fernandes, Musa Mazoro, Amadou Diallo, Brian Mbeumo, and Benjamin Sesko. Again, I've said this again and again, time and again, and I will repeat it. Bruno Fernandes as a number 8 in the long run is not going to work. It may work once in a while. It may work in a game or two, but in the long run, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And for me, yesterday was no surprise. You know, it was no surprise that they were having that poor performance. You know, so Musa Mazori paved the way for Kobe Mino. Now, you're playing Manchester City. You're playing away from home, and you're playing with a single pivot. No, that's not just right. It's not it. And I saw him in the aftermath, you know, saying it's not the system, he won't change his system, and things like that. Yes, he can say all that. And maybe he shouldn't be saying changing the system. That's for sure. But something needs to change, because whatever he is deploying is not delivering the results. You know, it is not delivering the results, and United need the results as soon as yesterday. He said in the aftermath of the game, "I'll do everything I can for Manchester United. This is my message to the fans. I'm suffering more than them." He added that, "I won't change my philosophy. If they, Ineos, want it changed, you change the man." Now, for a manager, first of all, that's not the right message to put out there. The first phrase where he says, "I'll do everything I can for Manchester United, and this is my message to the fans. I'm suffering more than they are," that is very okay, well and taken. But when you say, "I won't change my system," if they, Ineos, want it changed. Now, who tells him it's Ineos that wants this changed? Is he trying to suggest to us that his bosses, or within the hierarchy of the club, somebody is telling him to change his system? Is that what he's trying to tell us? Because he's saying, "I won't change my philosophy." If they, quote unquote, and I'm just reading a quote from his post-match press conference yesterday. This was put out by Fabrizio Romano. That's the quote where I'm reading it for. If they, Ineos, want it changed, the philosophy, then you change the man. Now, we all know that the hallmark of a modern day manager is adaptability. One, who is the opponent you're playing? How do they play? How do you defend against them? How do you outsmart them? How do you outwit them? How do you get the advantage over them? Even if you're playing Burnley, even if you're playing Manchester City, you go opponent by opponent. Now, some of the basics of how you play as a team may remain the same, but something has to change. Something needs to be seen to be different. Now, you're Manchester United, you're playing against a team like Manchester City, away from home, and then suddenly you still want to play with your 3 number 10s. That's Bruno Fernandes, Amadou Diallo, Brian Mbeumo on the same pitch, at the expense of having an extra midfielder. Now, I've said this before. Manchester United, in my personal opinion, need that outright number 8, a person that is good defensively, but also adds on defensively, a 50-50 kind of player, defensive duties and attacking duties, and they do not have that. They do not have that Yuri Tillemans kind of player. Now, when you look at Bruno Fernandes, who they are constantly pulling to play that role, he's failing to deliver. Now, if I'm Ruben Amorim yesterday, going away to Manchester City, a team that I know wants to possess the ball, that's how they outsmart me. I'm not playing Bruno Fernandes in that position. In any case, I would rather have him in a more advanced role. And this thing, because we can argue about the back three and dissect it, and it's one that I've dissected before. Now, in this particular system, because the back three as a system is not the problem, it's the players you deploy in that system and how you expect them to perform that then becomes the good or the bad thing. So in this particular case, you have 5 defenders. Now, one would think you're playing a back 5, but essentially it's not, And now, because you have Patrick Togu and Nosa Mazori on the other side, with 3 as a left back is and 2 center backs. Now, one would assume that when you're defending, it becomes a back 5. Basically, that's what a back 3 does, Then when you're going forward, you retain your back 3, then you commit numbers. These are 2 sort of wing backs, push further forward, and then you create that belt of 5 players in the middle third. Why am I saying 5? Because you have 2 number 10s already, and then there would be number 8 moves up front behind the striker to join them, to form that belt of 5, to create overloads within the final third, to win the ball back easily, but also to carry the ball forward and try and beat the other defense with those numbers, with those overwhelming numbers. That's the objective, right? And then, of course, in addition, you have the striker who may help you drag a center back or 2 away, depending on how much attention they can command. But for Ruben Amorim in this particular case, for me, it had something to do with personnel. First of all, in this particular game, I must find a way to accommodate Bruno Fernandes as one of the number 10s and put either Manuel Ugarte alongside Kobe Maino or Casemiro, whichever way you want to put it. Now, I know for a fact the reason as why I would prefer Kobe Maino is because going forward, he's a little better than you would have the double pivot of Casemiro and Manuel Ugarte, So, and try and play with that. But yesterday you had things that were just not clicking. And it showed. I mean, the last time you recall was Brian Mbeumo having that shot that was saved by General Donnarumma. On the other side, I mean, Jeremy Doku, the passes, they're trying to build up from the back. How many times did Manchester United had passes cut out of them? That second goal that is scored by Brad Erling Haaland. It's Jeremy Doku wins the ball back, passes it for Brad Erling Haaland. Bam, it's a goal. There was another moment that they missed, still trying to play out of the back. They concede possession, which is not the big deal, playing out of the back, because that's what teams are doing lately or in modern day football. But once you lose the ball in those kinds of dangerous positions, be ready to be punched. But like I said, you need to adapt to the opponent. You're playing a team that is very, very good counter pressing, because this is a system they played for as long as Pep Guardiola has been at that club, at Manchester City. So you will know for sure from having done your homework, from having done your scouting report, that they are better than you on that front, and that for you to get an advantage over them, there's something that you must do differently. There's something that you must do differently. But did we see Manchester United do anything differently yesterday? I did not think so. Same old Manchester United, same results. In any case, look at Dejan Reinders missing that golden opportunity. But Erling Haaland had his own missed opportunity. Those were literally 2 guaranteed goals. Literally, almost. Like I said, United could have conceded a handful of those, of course, but it just did not work out. Manchester City, like I said, handing Gianluigi Donnarumma, his debut, question of Ruben Dias, Nico O'Reilly, and Joshko Gvardiol in that back four. Bernardo Silva, Rodri, Jan Reinders. Bernardo Silva providing the assist for Haaland's 3rd goal, who had to run half the field to score, while Harry Maguire tried to chase on, all in vain. Hi, Pedri. How are you? Good morning to you. How is your beautiful Monday morning? So, Man United, then Phil Foden, Brad Erling Haaland, Jeremy Doku. We're talking about a Manchester City side that came into this game laden with lots and lots of injuries. Lots of injuries that were troubling them. And we're thinking to ourselves, do they have a necessary squad depth? Of course they do. Of course they do. But I mean, Jeremy Doku, what a game, what a man, But all credit to Manchester United. You made him look that good. And if results continue with this trend, I'll be surprised that Ruben Amorim will still be in that job by Christmas. For those of you, again, that do follow our channel quite ardently, you know for a fact that we did put out a video last week with Aldrin in Subuga. That was on Tuesday. And in part, it says, in that very video, he talks about Ruben Amorim not being the man. The character of the manager is not befitting of Manchester United. Now, twice, he's hinted about resigning. Twice, he's hinted about resigning. The first time he mentioned it, he did say, I'll be okay to leave. I won't even take compensation whatsoever. He talked about that. Then the second time, he said it had to do with something quitting. That sometimes he feels like quitting. Now, I know that managers sometimes feel like that way. Hell, we do ourselves when we are doing our regular work. Sometimes you're doing a job and you feel to yourself, Jesus Christ, maybe I should quit. Now, thinking about it and doing it are two different things. But those thoughts may come into your mind. Now, that's not the problem. But as a manager, you do not have to tell the public that you're thinking about it. Because this is not a sort of sit-down interview with Sky Sports where you try to go deeper into your workings with, with the club, how things are going for you and things like that, Apologies, guys. Allow me first to respond to this. Apologies on that internet glitch. Again, anyway, sometimes it's frustrating being in a kind of roles or work when internet does these kinds of things. But it is what it is, and it's very unfortunate. But yeah, we go to soldier on. We go to soldier on. And anyways, like I was saying, guys, when you're a manager of Manchester United, the things you just do not put out in the open public, the things you just do not go out are putting up back in the open public of how you feel like quitting and things like that, especially in a post-match press conference where results have not gone your way. Like I was saying, if you're having a special sit down with Sky Sports and you say managing a team the size of Manchester United is not an easy task, that's something the world knows. And at one time I thought about quitting. These come a moment of self-doubt. That's okay. That's okay. It's going to be related to, it's going to be understandable. But when you're saying it in the immediate aftermath of a game where you drop points, or it's not good. Now, yesterday, this is what I was speaking about earlier. He was saying, I won't change my philosophy. If they, Ineos, want change, you change the man. Modern day manager has to adapt, and he has to handle the media better than he does. Whether he's trying to be honest, sometimes being too honest isn't the best thing. Really. We all know that. Because we know sometimes things may be taken out of context, but in this particular case, that's not it. It's not even about taking things out of context. We're talking about a manager who has managed Manchester United through 31 Premier League games, has only won 8, has drawn 7, and has lost 16. Now, draws and victories combined, that's 15. He's lost 16. And guess what? He told the world at the tail end of the last season that they were, or during the course of last season, that they were going to suffer. And they did suffer. And at the end of the season, he told those fans at Old Trafford, till to the rafters, I told you we are going to suffer, we have done. And next season, we will be better. Is there anything we've seen in terms of how they play, in terms of how they deploy themselves, but versus Arsenal, That speaks to the fact that they are better than they were last season. Now, we have always made this argument. In a one-off game, Man United can be the best team you've ever watched. But consistently, game in, game out, because the Premier League season is 38 games, 4 have been ticked off. Now, I also did say in the preview to this game that 4 points out of a potential 9, having drawn one game, 1-1 and lost the other, the opening 3 games, wasn't the worst of results on paper. And it isn't. And even in this particular case, when you're assessing a manager based on 4 games and he's only lost he's lost 2 games, drawn 1 and won the other, it's not the worst of things, really. But Man United must be playing in a manner one, that gives promise. Yesterday, we did not see that. Do you know why Man United fans were okay taking that Arsenal loss? Is because they saw their team play well and figured if we keep on playing like this, then certainly, maybe, just maybe, eventually results will begin to come. Did they play like that against Fulham, the way they had played against Arsenal? Certainly not. And it ended in a draw. Did they play like that against Burnley? They did not play like that. They did not defend like that, more importantly, because they conceded 2 goals. While they managed to scrap out a 3-2 victory, going forward, they were the best team. They were the better team out of the 2. And they looked largely good. But defensively, there are things that were lacking. And on another day, they would have dropped 2 points. But they won the game. And that's what mattered, because sometimes you do not need to be at your best to win, but you need that victory to give you belief, to give you morale, to give you faith, to give you momentum. That's what we were just saying about Liverpool, So then they come and welcome, they go to Manchester City, and then, boy, did they put on a bad performance. So when you look at all that, their goal difference under his stewardship is a negative 13, 10 from last season and already 3 this season. So that win rate of about 25% is not going to do him any favors. At some point, because for majority of his tenure, by the way, at Manchester United, particularly dating back to last season, we discussed a lot about players not suiting the system, or players not doing what's enough, because there were so many questionable performances that you could put on the individuality of players. But this time around, as a good coach, you must have coached this team into something. And now it is to him that we're going to push all the questions, that we are going to point our guns. Yes, every once in a while, there will be a player with a scrappy performance that will point out to. But overall, the bigger burden will lay on the shoulders of the manager. That's just basically what it is. Man United fans, do let me know if you agree or disagree. But it was a horrendous performance for me. You are nowhere near looking like you could get a result in that game. And yet we know for a fact that in recent times, Manchester United last season went to Manchester City and beat them by 2-1. You remember Amadou Diallo's winning goal, 89th minute, Bruno Fernandes scores a penalty that restores parity, and then Amadou Diallo scrambles away a victory. Now, yesterday, there's no sign of that. And guess what? Manchester United's next game in the Premier League is going to be against Chelsea. We're talking about a Chelsea side who are yet to lose a game in this Premier League season, with 8 points on tally, having 2 victories and 2 draws on their name, following that 2 draw against Brentford over the weekend, So it's not going to be an easy game for them either. It's not going to be an easy game against Chelsea, because Chelsea, on a good day, they can put 3 past you as well. Now, for purposes of comparison, guys, let's look at a team like Brentford. I know for a fact that, and I would be very happy to be wrong about this one, we're talking about a Brentford side who, in my opinion, I did predict that will finish bottom. Sorry, not bottom, but will be among the teams that will be relegated. 4 games in, they have 1 win, they have 1 draw and 2 losses. That's fine. But that's similar to Manchester United. But if Keith Andrews, until yesterday, was a set-piece coach at Brentford, he's come into the role. and he's gone to toe with Ruben Amorim. Now, one would argue Fabian Asla is still in the same frame, and things like that. But in terms of managers that are new, that have already created a certain level of impact, we cannot go any further than Thomas Frank. Can we sit and argue that Tottenham Hotspur have a much better squad or a much better team than Manchester United? Maybe we can stand to make that argument. But he's managed to go particularly to their victory against West Ham United. It's one we did predict by on the channel that Tottenham Hotspur were going to beat up against West Ham United, and they managed to put 3 past them. Lucas Bagville, Pepe Matza, and who was the other goal scorer? I'm forgetting. Mickey van de Ven, So that result, beautiful for Tottenham. Third place, 9 points, 7 goal difference, 3 wins, 1 loss. It's just that simple. Almost as same tally of results with the second place Arsenal. Arsenal just have 1 goal better. Enzo Maresca played itself for the first half. He has more big games, preserving key players, but that didn't work in his favor. Chelsea would have won that game if they did not despise Brentford. Now, again, I understand the manager's idea or desires are to rotate players and to try and think you're preparing for bigger games. Now, unfortunately, maybe from where I sit is that oftentimes I watch that kind of thing and it did not serve managers' interests. Now, I remember particularly at Arsenal, Arsene Wenger doing it a good number of times. He would say, try and preserve, players when he has a night in the UEFA Champions League. And then you lose a weekend fixture, you lose in the Champions League as well, because you're reserving players because you have a Bayern Munich, you have a Barcelona to face up, and suddenly you find yourself cornered in that sort of sense. Now, basically, that's what Steve Villa is telling us that Enzo Maresca tried to do. And I mean, it's hard to argue against when you look at that starting lineup. Tosin Aderabio and Trevor Chalobah, Wesley Fofana, Enzo Maresca and Moises Caicedo, those are starters. Facundo Benanote, I do not know how he comes in here without Cole Palmer. Then Jamie Gittens and Pedro Neto. Now, Pedro Neto is a usual suspect. João Pedro has solidified his place. The midfield trio of Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo is okay. Jordan Hato is only starting his career at Chelsea, so that's a bit understandable. But when it comes to their centre backs, I mean, it's Enzo Maresca. It's very, very Enzo Maresca to rotate his centre backs. When today you'll see Trevor Chalobah alongside Levi Colwill. Unfortunately, at the moment he's out injured. Tomorrow you'll see Tosin Aderabio and Benoit Badia Shiri, and then Wesley Fofana. Now, again, why are you putting Wesley Fofana at right back when what happened to Rachel James? What happened to Malo Gusto? Because all those are players that are at your disposal. So at least one of them should be able to come in, unless you're saying they were all out injured, which I do not think was the case, because Rachel James did come on for Wesley Fofana. Cole Palmer eventually came on. Now, for the instance of Cole Palmer, I would understand in a bit, I would sort of understand, but also I want to look at it in the sense of what kind of them are you reserving for? You're going away to Bayern Munich. If Chelsea went away to Bayern Munich and lost, it's not going to be news. It's not going to be news. In any case, it will be news if Chelsea go away to Bayern Munich with their current squad and beat up against Bayern Munich. Paper, pound for pound, Bayern Munich have a better team. Pedigree stands on the side of Bayern Munich. That's just what it is. It's the UEFA Champions League. Some boys are bigger than others. But of course, you want to give yourself a chance and win. But in the Premier League, it's Brentford. It's at home. Yes, you have the comfort of playing at home. But in any case, my view is always bring your strongest team in the first half, blow these guys away. By the time you're 60 into the 60th minute, maybe you're 2-0 up, you're 3-0 up, and then you make the changes that you want to make. But starting those players off the bench, hoping that if things fail in the first instance, you will bring them and try and create impact, that I certainly do not agree with. Bring on your best team, blow a team away in the first half if you think you're capable of that, and then in the second half you can bring on players that can help you with game management, players that can see out the game and get you the result. Now you have 2 drop points, and those can turn out to be very, very big points at the end of the day, you know. So Steve says, I blame the last minute equalizer to Captain Richard James. He should have commanded the entire team to guard the corner. He did need an extra goal or counter attack. Now, again, you know, Chelsea were in the driving seat because they were leading by 2-1 until the 94th minute, 93rd minute, thereabout. Now, when you look at the goal situation in itself, the first ball, you have about 4 defenders surrounding the Brentford player that heads that ball, you know, towards the back post before it is slotted home. Now, again, Alejandro Garnacho has taken the hit among the Chelsea fans. Now, part of that rage is a bit misguided. Yes, Garnacho should have done better to cover on that back post in terms of not letting the player, you know, put that ball away to score the equalizer. You know, but that's Fabio Cavani. He should have done better. But Aja heads that ball. He flicks it backwards amidst 4 defenders, including Trevor Chalobah at his back somewhere. You know, now because Garnacho is easier to blame, we ignore the fact that the ball comes in and Chelsea do not do enough to fight for it in the first instance. And then we are going to go and blame Garnacho, who was having his first game in Chelsea colors, really. So, but anyways, it is what it is. It's very unfortunate. But yeah, Kevin Shedd. I thought Kevin Shedd had a very, very good game yesterday, by the way. Very, very good game he had. Then, of course, he eventually scored. Cole Palmer with the equalizer. Moises Caicedo thought he had won it all for Chelsea with that 85th minute strike. Again, Brentford defended poorly in that moment because I thought they accommodated him a lot of space inside that 18-yard box before he fires that ball into the back of the net. But Premier League football is like that. Any team can cost you points, any team can cost you results. Anyways, continuing with the Saturday results. Arsenal managed to blow away Nottingham Forest by 3-0. Arsenal could have caused themselves problems, particularly, I think it was in the first half. Was it in the first half before they get their or early in the second half? They're about that ball that hits the woodwork from Chris Wood, literally, thanks to David Raya, who fingertipped it off to ensure that it does not hit the back of the net. Probably if that had hit the back of the net, we could have been discussing maybe perhaps a different result. My personal prediction on the channel here while we're doing the preview was a 3-1 victory for Arsenal. Unfortunately for them, they did not concede. David Raya making his 100th appearance in the Premier League for the Gunners and keeping his 42nd clean sheet. I think arguably more than any other goalkeeper in those number of games ever since he joined Arsenal. That was for the 2023-2024 campaign on loan for Brentford. Now, we know that last season he did share the Golden Glove with Matt Sells of Nottingham Forest, who I thought also did brilliantly well. I think he was called into action twice, particularly in the first half against Mikel Merino, who was coming into this game with a lot of confidence, having scored 4 for Spain, including a hat-trick against Turkey in the World Cup qualifiers over there in Europe. Now, there's a pundit called Richard something. He made some stupid comments, and I'll call them stupid comments because while we are analysts or football commentators or whichever way you may want to slice it, while we are entitled to our opinions, as are the fans themselves, he is of the view that he wasn't convinced because Mikel Arteta chose to rotate Declan Rice, and he's asking, why are you rotating Declan Rice? It's early on into the season. He's not played so many minutes. I'm like, what are you talking about? He swapped him for who? For Mikel Merino, who scored for Spain during the international break. He's equally in good form. Now, he was being slandered again by, I think, Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville for fielding the same player against Liverpool. Now, I myself, for one, was surprised. I thought maybe you could have put a more attacking-minded player, but the result in itself was not entirely on Arteta's fielding of Mikel Merino that they failed to get the result at Anfield. I did not think that was entirely the case. Could they have done more creatively? Maybe yes. But it's easy to say that Arsenal could have done better and then ignore the fact that Liverpool were doing better defensively. Now, in this particular case, Arsenal brought away Nottingham Forest, beaten them by 3-0, and then somebody is still, questioning the manager's decision to rotate Declan Rice. Does he remember that Arsenal play away to Athletic Bilbao in the midweek, that's on Tuesday, before returning home to play Manchester City? Remember, Manchester City are going to play on Thursday. Now, and when I saw this, of course, many of us are not accustomed to change, and every time change comes about, we are quick to question it. And for some, it boils down to that. But for a manager that knows, have two big games coming, the first game in the UEFA Champions League, and he looks at it as a very big game because he's a losing semi-finalist from the previous season, and he's expected to do better this season. Two, you have Manchester City at home next. So it is okay to rest Declan Rice, who had played very many minutes with England, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to need him to run his shoes off when we play Manchester City, when maybe we'll play Bilbao away from home. So I did not find that really, really odd. In any case, I'd urge Mikel Arteta to do it more, when it comes to player rotations. Look at Ricardo Carafiori. He's getting the nod ahead, and yet last season we were all gushing about Miles Lewis-Kelly, and I know he's going to play at some point. Now, look at what a lack of rotation has done. Martin Odegaard recovered from a shoulder injury, had a couple of minutes versus Liverpool, went away with the Norwegian national team, played so many minutes, he comes back, he started back, shoulder injury. And maybe he misses only a couple of days of training and he's back into action. But we should be able to trust Ethan Nwaneri or Ebeleche Eze to play in that Martin Odegaard role, to give him extended days to recover. The same way we told William Saliba, you do not need to rush yourself because we are covered with Christian Mosquera, in that sort of sense. But I thought overall Arsenal had a very, very beautiful game, and Martin Zubimendi scoring the brace for his second game at the Emirates Stadium, as far as the Premier League is concerned. And then Victor Gyökeres scoring the other, with Ebeleche Eze providing the assist. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Leandro Trossard provided the assist. He was a second half substitute, and they did come on with Gabriel Martinelli for Ebeleche Eze and Noni Madueke. Noni Madueke, a very, very beautiful performance from him. Now, again, this is where I want to disagree with the numbers. Now, Noni Madueke had a very beautiful game. He had a very beautiful performance on the day. He ran at that Nottingham Forest defense as often as he could, every time he had space to run into. Now, because he did not provide any assist, he did not score any goal, somebody is going to tell you, yeah, he's still on the road to the 007, the 007. 7 games played, 0 goals, 0 assists. Now, sometimes statistics in terms of goals and assists are very dissuading or robbing of a player of the kinds of good performances in. But also, that performance was another middle finger raised by Noni Madueke to those Arsenal fans who are putting out a petition, trying to sign a petition for Arsenal not to sign Noni Madueke. And I remember making the argument that people were so blinded of where he was coming from and how much he was going to cost, and forgetting what he was able to deliver or what he was coming in for, providing cover for Bukayo Saka. After that result, nobody was speaking about Bukayo Saka being missing, Nobody was speaking about William Saliba being out of that game. Nobody was speaking about Kai Havertz. People have forgotten about Christian Nogard, and I mentioned this in the preview. People have forgotten about Gabriel Jesus. Had we not discussed him last week for Mikel Arteta's justification of him being omitted out of the UEFA Champions League squad because apparently the team doctors have told them he may only recover until maybe December, January. Had it not been that, people have forgotten about him. Why? Because now Arsenal have that squad depth. And it's just not squad depth in terms of numbers. It's also in quality. That in the absence of Bukayo Saka, you have Noni Madueke. The two are not the same style of players in terms of, because Noni Madueke is a little bit more direct, you know. And then Bukayo Saka, take nothing away from him. And I'm not making the argument that Noni Madueke is a better player than Bukayo Saka. That's not the argument. But he may not be as good as Bukayo Saka, but he is good enough to walk in his shoes to provide you cover when you have him out injured, you know. So that's my biggest takeaway from that, you know. So and I said this after his performance against Liverpool away at Anfield, and I said he's going to have the last laugh to those Arsenal fans that were opposed to the transfer in the first place. 2 games into the season, Bukayo Saka is out injured, and now you have the perfect cover. Yes, we are all screaming. People are saying, oh, we have McTominay, we have Ethan Nwaneri. We tried Ethan Nwaneri there. While he's good, sometimes he fell short. And I'm not saying Noni Madueke won't fall short. But so far, so good. Ebeleche is getting an assist. Direct play. Ricardo Carafiori, long ball into the channel to the left wing. Is a head up, sees Victor Gyökeres, makes the pass, simple tapping, and it's a goal. Then he also hit the upright quite strongly. Now, and I've said this before, I do not care if Victor Gyökeres scores 100 goals against smaller teams and he does not score against the big teams. It is those small teams that cost Arsenal points and possibly a Premier League title last season. So we'll take it there. Anyways, away from the other results, Bournemouth did beat up against Brighton by 2-1. Crystal Palace shared the spoils with Sunderland in a goalless draw, while Aston Villa and Everton shared the spoils. I think we had called this one to go into a draw. I stand to be corrected. And then will that Bournemouth victory against Brighton, I thought it would be a draw. Fulham beat up against Leeds by 0-0, while Newcastle also beat up against Wolves by 0-0. Tottenham Hotspur put 3 past West Ham United, and that 2-2 draw from Chelsea. So that's what we did gather from the weekend in as far as the Premier League was concerned. A quick look at the Premier League table. Like I said, Liverpool lead the pile. They lead the pile. Arsenal, Tottenham Hotspur come in second and third place respectively, with FC Bournemouth in fourth place. We thought AFC Bournemouth would struggle in the first half of the season, given how many players they had lost, particularly in their defense. But looks like Andoni Iraola is working the magic. They have won 3 games out of the opening 4 and lost just 1. So Chelsea complete the top 5 with 8 points, while Everton have 7 points, Sunderland 7 points, Manchester City in 8th place with 6 points. Do not be worried about Manchester City. Crystal Palace 6 points, Newcastle 5 points, and then that completes the top 4. And then the bottom we have Wolverhampton Wanderers 0 points, Aston Villa 2 points, West Ham United 3 points, Burnley 3 points, Leeds United 4 points, Nottingham Forest 4 points, and Manchester United in 14th place with 4 points. Now, remember our relegation predictions were Brentford in 18th, Sunderland and Burnley. But so far so good for the newcomers. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, that was my take. That was my take, or part of the take from the weekend, really. Then today, Espanyol will be up against Mallorca, while Hellas Verona, that's in the Spanish La Liga, Hellas Verona in the Italian Serie A will be up against Cremonese, and Como will take on Genoa. In the Spanish La Liga, Barcelona put 6 past Valencia. I mean, for me, there are no surprises about Barcelona. The only thing I'm surprised about is that they did not concede. Fermin Lopez scored a brace in that one, Robert Lewandowski a brace, Rafinha a brace, you know, and it was simply that. 6 past Valencia. and they are looking very, very decent. So Celta Vigo shared the spoils in a 1-1 draw, while Levante and Real Betis also shared the spoils in a 2-2 draw. Osasuna beat up against Rayo Vallecano. While the previous day, that was on Saturday, you did have Getafe beat up against Real Oviedo by 2-0. Real Madrid scrapped out a win to beat Real Sociedad by 2-1. Atletico Bilbao were beaten up against by Deportivo Alves by 0-0, while Atletico de Madrid finally won a game, beating Villarreal by 2-0. Like I said, not the best of Premier League, stats for Atletico de Madrid, who take on Liverpool. And by the way, I expect Liverpool to win that game. I mean, anyways, Real Madrid lead the pile with 12 points. Barcelona with 10 points in second place. Real Madrid have 4 out of 4. Barcelona 3 out of 4 with another draw. Bilbao have won 3 out of 4. Getafe 3 out of 4. Villarreal 2 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss. Same for Espanyol and Deportivo Alves. So those are some of what's happening in there. Girona, unfortunately, are bottom. Mallorca, second bottom, and Levante all have just 1 point to their respective names. Anyways, guys, okay, maybe the other result I need to talk about is that of in the Italian Serie A, where Juventus beat Inter Milan by 4-3. Very, very dramatic encounter there. Kenan Yildiz, one of the goal scorers in that one, while Napoli put 1-3-1 against Fiorentina, and Cagliari beat up against Parma by 2-0, I think. So, anyways, guys, thank you so much, Steve, and LFC, as well as Pedri, and every single one of you that has managed to be part of this morning broadcast. I want to wish you a wonderful rest of the day and the new week. May everything you touch turn into gold. But it's always a pleasure doing this with you guys. We will do another episode in the night. Of course, the UEFA Champions League does get underway. We'll get to talk about that tomorrow, and perhaps maybe in the night's broadcast and things like that. Stay blessed. Bye-bye for now.